welcome to Budget MTG Decks. All Magic fun, all cards under $1. I'm David, and today we're going to learn how to play Magic the Gathering. Now, Magic is quite a complicated game, so we won't be looking at all the rules today, just the bare basics so we can get started with the game. Okay, so what is Magic? Well, Magic the Gathering is a card game based on strategy and luck, where you are kind of wizard trying to defeat your opponent, who is also a wizard. How do you do this? Well, each player starts the game with 20 life, and the goal of the game is to reduce our opponent's life from 20 to 0. How do we do that? Well, we do that throughout the game by casting spells which either summon fearsome creatures to fight for us and deal damage to our opponent, or summon other kinds of powerful magical energies which either benefit us or hinder our opponent in some way. To cast these spells, we draw power from the land. This power is called mana. This mana we use to cast all the spells that we have. Mana comes in 5 different colors: white, blue, black, red, and green. And each has its own strengths and weaknesses. Okay, let's have a look at the setup of the game. Here we have our life total. It is usually denoted by a 20-sided die, and it counts down throughout the game as we take damage. Then we have our deck. It consists of 60 cards. It's also known as our library. The library represents all the magical spells we could have access to during the game. Then we have our hand. This is where we hold the cards we currently have access to during the game. Then we move on to the battlefield. This is where we play cards which stay on the table. So for example, if we were to play a powerful creature, we would put it right here on the battlefield. Then we have our graveyard. When a creature dies or a single-use spell is cast, we put these cards in our graveyard. Finally, we have the exile zone. Cards which are banished from the game altogether get moved to the exile zone. Okay, now let's find out how we cast a spell. Here we have a look at our hand. We have a card there. This card is called Glory Seeker. Let's have a closer look at the card layout. Up here we have the name of the card. In this case, Glory Seeker. Down here we see what type of card it is. In this case, it is a creature card. Below that, there's space for special abilities and flavor text. Flavor text is in italics and has had no effect on the game. As we see, Glory Seeker has no special abilities. In the bottom right corner, we see 2 numbers. The first number denotes the creature's power. That's how much damage it deals in combat. The second is the creature's toughness. This is how much damage it needs to take before dying and be put into our graveyard. Finally, we have a look at the casting cost of this card. This is how much magical energy, known as mana, we need to be able to cast this spell. The first symbol is a colorless mana symbol with a number in it, in this case 1. It denotes how much mana of any color is required to cast the spell. The second symbol is a white mana symbol and denotes how much additional white mana is required in order to cast this spell. So if we look over here, we see that this card costs 2 mana to cast, 1 of any color and 1 white mana. So how do we get this mana so that we can cast this spell? As we mentioned before, mana comes from the land. Here we have 2 lands. They are called plains. Each plane produces 1 white mana. If we tap it 90 degrees, we can release this white mana so that we can use it to cast spells. Let's do that right now. As you remember, we still have the creature spell on our hands. This card had a casting cost of 2 mana, 1 mana of any color and 1 white mana. As we now have 2 white mana at our disposal, we can cast a spell and put the card from our hand onto the battlefield. Very good. Now let's have a look at starting the game. First, each player shuffles his or her library. Then we determine who goes first. Traditionally, we each roll a die. Finally, each player draws 7 cards from the top of their library. Now the first player is ready to take their first turn. Well, that's all there is to starting a game of Magic. I'm David, and this was Budget MTG Decks. Join me in the next video where we have a look at the turn phases of the game.